What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Dirty Bird Fly Through. Before we get started with today's video, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share. All your support is greatly appreciated. And now that we are in football season, it's that time of year. It is time for content, and it's time to dedicate all the time towards the Atlanta Falcons. So, this is something that I'm going to do the day after every game that we have. We're going to do a recap video of what happened in the game and some of the big takeaways from it. And then also at the end, looking forward to the next game. So, the Falcons yesterday did lose to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They lost 23 to 20 in a game that I think everyone agrees could have easily have gone either way. The Falcons had opportunities to definitely win this game, but in the end they fell short to the Buccaneers. There was definitely a lot to like about this game, but there were reasons that at the end of the day we lost this game. And we're going to look at some of those reasons. So without further ado, let's get started. And the number one thing that we have to talk about is I personally believe that Young Wei Koo's time in Atlanta has to come to an end. I think that really yesterday was kind of the final straw in an instance because this really is Koo's final chance, I think, to get it together here. We saw we've really kind of seen for the last 2 years Koo have, some struggles here and there, but we really saw last year, especially that game in New Orleans and the 4 game losing streak, as much as I think we give a lot of blame to Kirk Cousins, we also have to recognize that Younghoe Koo played a part in that also. He can be looked at as the reason we did not win down in New Orleans and sweep the Aints last year. He can be looked at as one of the reasons why we lost that Chargers game. I believe he had some crucial misses in that one. And Younghoe Koo's season came to an end last year with an injury. Fast forward to this off season, we bring some competition in. Lenny Craig from the international scene out of Germany, and going into training camp, it was an open competition. Koo kind of always had the advantage because the Falcons wanted to give him another chance. They wanted to see Koo, with a full off season to be able to heal, believing that he could really be able to get it right and get back to the Young Wei Koo that we all know and love, the Young Wei Koo that we could all pretty much count on 90% of the time to make those kicks. And yesterday, when you have an opportunity to tie the game up and send us into overtime against not just any team, but the Buccaneers, the team that we know that we have to beat to really want to get where we want to go, that is kind of a deal breaker, I think, for a lot of people. And it's pretty clear that I think Young Wei Koo, he has given us some amazing memories. He has become a fan favorite, but at the same time, all good things must come to an end. It clearly seems like for Young Wei Koo, the magic that really he had has in many ways come to an end. So, as tough as it is to say personally, I think that the Falcons, they have to really consider cutting bait with Young Wei Koo following this game. And you have Lenny Craig on your practice squad. I think that, if I were the Falcons, I would bring Lenny Craig up this week and I would let him take over kicking duties starting this Sunday night versus the Minnesota Vikings. Will the Falcons do that? I'm honestly not totally sure. Raheem Morris did not seem to totally rule it out, but you cannot continue to let Young Wei Koo cost you games when it is pretty clear that at this rate, he is not the same kicker that he was 3, 4 years ago. The next thing we're going to talk about that I think cost the Falcons this game is Zach Robinson and his play calling. And, I really want to put blame on Younghoe Koo. However, Zach Robinson called a horrific game yesterday and really did not do Michael Penix any favors because he pretty much called the game as if Kirk Cousins was the starting quarterback. I don't know if he forgot to take his Xanax. I don't know if he has some form of CTE or he has a concussion or something like that. But he clearly forgot the 3 games that they had at the end of last season that they were building on with Michael Penix. We did see more play action, it felt like, but you still saw 95% of the plays out of the pistol or shotgun. And at the end of the day, that's not how this offense can operate. You have to throw in diversity with play calling, with the looks. Everything that we saw from Michael Penix yesterday, we see that there's clearly nothing wrong with him. You got to put it on Zach Robinson because even despite Michael Penix having a great game, the Falcons could have been in a much better position to win if it were not for the very questionable play calling of Zach Robinson. And the other thing going over the defense side of the ball is looking at where was the pass rush that was talked up all off season. Now this is not a new thing for the Falcons to hear that this is finally going to be the year that we're going to get a productive pass rush and we don't see any of it. But at the same time, Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. were 2 guys brought in this offseason via first round draft picks to change that narrative about the pass rush, to actually bring productivity in. And I did say before the game, you don't want to put too much pressure on these rookies. And I'm not blaming Walker or Pierce in any way, but I also don't think that they were put in many good positions either because they really didn't have lanes opened up for them. And I think even in the case of a James Pierce, I really don't think the Falcons let him do what he is meant here to do, which is just roam and cause havoc. Even Jalen Walker, it really felt like with how versatile he is. Now, I also think we need to realize Jalen Walker is definitely more of a project. Pierce, I believe, is supposed to be more that instant impact guy. And I really don't think we saw Pierce get as many chances as I would have liked to have seen yesterday. So, I also think that the pass rush, that also comes down to coaching. And I would definitely like to see Jeff Ulbrich, who this was at the end of the day his first game as our defensive coordinator. So yes, of course, you're going to still have some lumps to be taken, as all new coordinators do. Yeah, and the defense did not look totally terrible yesterday. I do think we saw some promising things. We saw some pressure, but we want to see pass rush. We want to see the pressure from our guys coming up front. And, going away from Walker and Pierce. Where was Arnold Ebiketie other than getting burned by Baker Mayfield? Where was Leonard Floyd? That this is what I'm talking about. You need pass rush, and you can't just rely on your rookies either. You got to get it from a guy like Arnold Ebiketie, who's coming, into a pretty big year with this being a contract year. A Leonard Floyd, who's supposed to be that veteran presence, and we also need help in the interior as well if we are going to get a pass rush, and we clearly did not see it yesterday. And, the fact that we weren't able to get Baker on the ground more is probably another reason that the Falcons lost this game. Now, moving over to some positives, Michael Penix. Michael Penix is a absolute dog. And everyone who I think doubted him, just going off the 3 games were a small sample size at the end of the season, versus defenses that were tired. That narrative got put to rest yesterday because he came out and he didn't play the perfect game. He definitely, had, and I think a lot of that can be contributed to the fact that he really didn't get fully unlocked. It really felt like they were putting him under the Kirk Cousins playbook when you had a full off season to actually plan for this game week 1. But even still, Michael Penix and that touchdown run at the very end, that that just goes to show that he is going to make a play, whether it is to his wide receivers or whether he takes matters into his own hands. Michael Penix is the quarterback of this football team. You can tell he is taking more and more pride in it. I am so happy that he is the quarterback of this football team. And, he really makes me think that in the end, things are going to be all right. I think that is the difference between this week 1 loss and other week 1 losses that we have seen. Things are going to be all right because we do have a quarterback. We have Michael Penix, and everything is only going to get better. And as long as Zach Robinson works with him and plays to his strengths, we're only going to see Michael Penix get better as well. Now, we do have some game balls to hand out. And the first game ball we're going to hand out is Michael Penix. Michael Penix yesterday went 27 for 42 with 298 yards and a touchdown pass, as well as 6 rushes for 21 yards and that touchdown run to give the Falcons the lead in the fourth quarter. So, Michael Penix easily gets the game ball, easily gets his credit, easily gets his flowers, and, looking forward to see how he can grow from here on out. The next guy I'm going to give a game ball to, and this guy was really impressive. He's a guy that we've heard about a lot this offseason, and I know I, for one, was kind of, unsure about all the noise, but we can clearly see that the Falcons have a vision for this guy, and it was fully displayed yesterday, and that is Divine Diablo. When I tell you he was all over the field, he was bringing pressure, he was in on pass breakups, he was in on tackles, he was doing everything that you could ask for a linebacker to do. He was a football player yesterday. He came out and he contributed, and he played his part. The Falcons did not lose because of his efforts. That is why Divine Diablo in his Falcons debut is going to get a game ball. And the final game ball we're going to hand out is to a guy that I'm sure is going to get plenty this year, and that is Bijan Robinson. Now, he didn't exactly have a ideal day rushing the ball, only 12 rushes for 24 yards. I kind of think you could maybe contribute some of that to his offensive line, not necessarily giving him the holes, and also Vita Vea playing, who is far and away one of the most dominating defensive forces in the entire league. But still, in the receiving game, Bijan, 6 catches for 100 yards and the touchdown he had on the third play of the game yesterday. So even with a lackluster day rushing, Bijan still proves to be very effective through the passing game and be an option out of the backfield for Michael Penix. And, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I would really not be shocked if late in the year Bijan has a shot to only become the 4th player to have 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving. I think with the tools that the Falcons have on offense, it's going to make it way tougher for him. But I think Bijan is the type of talent that is definitely capable of it, and he gets those opportunities, he's going to make the most of them. So Bijan absolutely gets a game ball. Now, we gave out some game balls, but we also have some game losers. And the first game loser is Younghoe Koo. And I've expressed my disappointment in him, my desire to really, I think, move on, as I think it is the best thing the Falcons can do right now. But at the end of the day, you hate to see it. It wasn't just the miss either. It really kind of felt like a lot of kicks he had yesterday that it really just felt like even the ones that he made, something was off with them. And, he's just not that same Koo. And I really think a lot of that is contributed to changing up the kicking technique. I really don't know why he did that, because Koo, even with his previous one, was still making, 54, 55-yard field goals. I really don't know why he felt the need to just to get on, maybe a few extra yards, but you can clearly tell he's not comfortable with it. But I also think that it's just time that the Falcons they have to cut their ties, and are they gonna do it? I'm not sure, but I personally think that the leash for Koo was relatively short, and I'm ready to see Lenny Craig. The next game loser is Zach Robinson. And Zach Robinson, simply put, he's got to do better calling these games. You cannot treat Michael Penix like a statue Kirk Cousins. You got to realize the talent that you have, and you got to harvest all of it from the tree. You cannot be sitting here and be treating this offense like what it was a year ago, because it simply is not. You have a much more talented quarterback. You have talented receivers. Even though Darnell Mooney was out yesterday, you have talented receivers. You have Kyle Pitts, who's still supposed to be a unicorn, and you have Bijan and Tyler Algier, one of the best running back duos in the league. And of course, Bijan, that speaks for itself. So the fact that the Falcons had some lackluster moments on offense yesterday, I contribute to him. I do think that we are going to see this offense obviously get better. I think they're going to be all right, and I think we're going to see Zach Robinson call better games, but I still have to call him out for this one. Still got to hold him accountable. Zach Robinson is absolutely a game loser. And the final game loser from yesterday's game is Mike Hughes. Mike Hughes really was on the wrong end of a lot of plays yesterday, especially involving Bucks rookie receiver Emeka Ibuka. And obviously, the most critical one being the game-winning touchdown to him for the Buccaneers. And simply put, to be a veteran like Mike Hughes, who did just get another contract here this offseason, you cannot be letting a rookie in his first ever game, I don't care how talented he is, you cannot be letting that get done to you. So, Mike Hughes is absolutely a game loser from yesterday, and he's got to step it up because there is depth in this cornerback room, and he has to step his game up moving forward. So, I do want to talk about this quickly before I look forward. Drake London yesterday came out of the game with a shoulder injury. It is said that he is supposed to be day to day, and we really haven't got much else beside of that. I would maybe expect we're going to get something later today, but I still haven't heard much else beyond that. I did see it's very possible he can miss practice, and it does put his status in question for Sunday night's game in Minnesota. But I still think that there could be a little reason to be optimistic that Drake London can go on Sunday night versus Minnesota. And speaking of that game, speaking of the game on Sunday night, looking forward really quickly, the Falcons are heading up to Minneapolis to take on the Vikings and J.J. McCarthy on Sunday Night Football, who we are going to see play tonight. And I really don't know what to expect out of Minnesota. I really don't know. I think we're going to get a better idea after tonight. But even still, it's only a one-game sample. I really don't think that, this game tonight versus Chicago, I think it's only going to tell us so much. I will say that this is a game that I've have said time and time again. I think the Falcons are going to find a way to start 1-1, whether it's they're going to win versus Tampa or they're going to win versus Minnesota. They're going to find a way to at least start 1-1. And this is a big opportunity for the Falcons. I do think you're going to see an offense more gelled. You do have to respect Brian Flores as a defensive coordinator, but the Falcons last year were tied in this game 21 all late in the third quarter. We lost because essentially Sam Darnold played the best game of his career, and the Falcons had some poorly timed DB blitzes, and also Kirk Cousins was playing. He had a couple turnovers, and things just did not go our way. Ray McLeod fumbled on a kickoff return. So, simply put, things just did not go our way last year. But having Michael Penix, having that new energy, you definitely get the feeling that things could go differently, and the Falcons are going to be looking to get some revenge up in Minnesota. So you have to avoid an 0-2 start. I think that is critical. Last year, the Falcons went into Philly. No one thought they were going to win, and they got to win. So, kind of time to do that again. The Falcons are going to have to go into Minnesota. They're obviously going to be underdogs, but they got to go in there. They got to pull off an upset. But appreciate everyone for watching. Remember to like, remember to subscribe, remember to share it out. And I will see you all in the next one. Take care.